On.
Okay.
Good afternoon, UK Crime Book Club. We have author Trevor Twohig here with us at the moment, and I'm really excited to get going and introduce you to his books. Hi, Trevor.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Well, thank you. Yeah, really excited about this and looking forward to having a chat about crime and so
on. Well, we've got a couple of questions, but I'm going to start first and just ask you. I've been reading Sunny Sands. I really want to know where the idea for Charlie Stone came from. He's a really fantastic character, really well written, really interesting guy, and pretty normal considering how many police officers we see in books that have got massive problems. He seems to cope with life pretty well considering. So how did you come up with the character?
Well, I mean, yeah, the character is kind of loosely like sort of semi-autobiographical. I've never myself had any dealings with the police, but I think a lot of the kind of the sort of dramatic elements, as in like the issues with kind of family and divorce. You know, it was kind of like I sort of as a kind of, well, I mean, going back to how I originally started Sunny Sands, or how I started writing in general was when my father died, and as kind of like a cathartic experience, I just started writing, and from that, this is kind of all sort of spiraled really. So I think the character has got elements of a kind of fictional character that, like you say, handles things possibly better than you know people do in real life, but also a lot of the difficulties that Charlie faces in his personal life are kind of based on events that have happened and things that that have occurred, and obviously for me, like you say, it's kind of difficult because there are so many police procedures, there's so many good crime books, crime series, etc., and to find something that has like a USP, it's hard. And so for me, the thing was the relationship with his daughter, and so that kind of, for me, I felt was hopefully for people kind of interesting and made it sort of slightly different from the other great texts that are out there. So I mean, elements of obviously imagination and so on, but some strong elements of kind of things that were going on in my life at the time really as well, you know.
I think a lot of authors do that. There's got to be somebody that appears somewhere in some form in writing. It's always going to be somebody from experience.
I think it makes the writing more authentic. It makes it more genuine. I think if you can write from a perspective, you know, it's like, you know, what's that? I think it's Ernest Hemingway. Really inspired me. He said, you know, writing is easy. You sit at a typewriter and bleed. And I think that for me was quite a powerful quotation because, you know, anything that I've been interested in, whether it's music, whether it's literature, whether it's film, there's always been some element of pain, hasn't there? And I think some of the things we love about the characters we love and the stories that we love, it's dealing with, you know, painful situations that we can understand and kind of either seek solace in or just kind of however it's emotion, isn't it? And that's what kind of makes stories good, you know, for me. So I think there has to be an element of that genuine of sort of genuine characters, and I've always kind of done that, and that definitely continues into the second novel with friendships and so on as well. So
So your day-to-day life at the moment, you're an English teacher. Has
Yeah.
that been have you been able to go to work this last few months?
No, which, if I'm being totally honest, has been great for my writing career.
Of
But
course.
yeah, has been a little bit, it's been a bit odd and a bit lonesome. So yeah, no,
Mm,
I'm lucky in a way. Well, I'm very lucky because obviously, given the situation in the country and that people are facing, I've actually changed jobs sort of halfway through
mm,
the lockdown, and yeah, I'm now teaching in Kent as the head of English in a special needs school, which is kind of my I think what I prefer,
mm.
as opposed to the mainstream. So yeah, I have just restarted back last week, and although it's all a bit peculiar, and no one
Mm,
kind of really knows what's going on these
yeah.
days, but yeah, it's as always with these things, it's like organised chaos. So yeah. Yeah, I'm excited and yeah, getting back to it properly, really.
I think most people's lives are organised chaos most of the time. We're all winging it and trying to look like we know what we're doing.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're
So
right.
we've
And
got a
that's, yeah, I think
question
that's what they say.
from Caroline. She wants to know what got you into writing crime. So obviously you've talked a little bit about big changes in your life that happened, but did you always know that crime was what you wanted to write?
Yes, and I think that there's. I've always sort of flirted with the idea of kind of detective work to the point actually
Mm,
where in a previous life I have actually I've got a private investigation like training certificate, and I actually briefly ran a opened a sort of crime business, like this private investigative business called Kent Investigation. So I've always had that desire and passion, but never quite. I've dipped my toe, if you like, but never really
mm,
gone full speed into it. But obviously, the idea and the concept interests me, and I like, like we sort of touched upon earlier. I like the idea of getting into kind of. There's some screaming children in the background now, like we spoke about, but yeah, on cue. So yeah, no, getting into people's feelings, emotions, delving into the dark stuff, and seeing what happens with that and how people deal with that. And I think Sunny Sands to some extent, but Crimson Cross very much so. The second novel does get dark, it gets very, very dark, and yeah, and I kind of, as much as like I don't obviously like that in my normal life, I like writing about it because it's interesting to kind of put yourself in the sort of perspective of someone who, how does Charlie Stone, how do these people deal with some of the quite difficult things they do deal with, and I suppose it's interesting comparing it now to our current situation, whether it's lockdown or coronavirus, or whether it's Black Lives Matter and civil rights and stuff. We're constantly being bombarded with things that I think we all find are kind of appalling, and I
mm,
think certainly in the second one, but also in the first one, I've tried to use kind of storylines that are appalling, that are shocking, and how do we, because it's there, unfortunately it's there, it's the elephant in the room. We don't want it in our personal lives, and we avoid it, but it's always a worry and it's always a concern. So when you're that person who has to deal with that situation, how do they do it? And that's always kind of intrigued me and interested me. So writing crime just seemed like a natural fit, because I can kind of get my the sort of quite dramatic, I suppose, or fit bits that have happened in my life that I think that hopefully other people might resonate with or relate to, as well as kind of the sort of living a vicarious existence as a kind of detective, solving some quite unbelievable crimes. So yeah, that's kind of why I got into writing crime, I guess.
Did you have to do much research on the police procedural side?
Lots, because unless I guess unless you're in it, it's very hard to know. Kind of, it's the intricacies, isn't it? It's the type of computer system that you might use to search certain people. It's the procedures as to how exactly what goes on. And in that first section of Sunny Sands, the first chapter, that. I mean, personally, I don't. If I had my time again, I would go back and rewrite that. But that said, it's my first novel, and we've all got to start somewhere. But it was incredibly difficult for me as a first-time writer of crime to get it right, and I needed a lot of advice and a lot of help. And I talked to a lot of people who were policemen, people who knew the local area, because it was a teenage girl washes up on a beach in Folkestone, which is kind of a sleepy-ish sort of town in the East End of Kent, and how you go about having no experience of dealing with that sort of thing was hard, and I had to rewrite it over and over and over again. So yes, and still, even because in Crimson Cross, the second novel, we go cross Europe really. And we go to a variety of places, so different procedural things occur, and obviously I had to look into that and make sure it's right, because it's very hard to write, quite I mean, it's certainly the storyline in the second book is far more intricate, and there's a lot more like loose ends, and it sort of ties in, and that was hard to get them all to tie in together. But what I don't want is huge glaring continuity errors, because it's something that when I'm watching crime or I'm reading crime, you think that can't have happened, like that's what's going on there, and that's something that really really concerns and bothers me. I've just started playing a new computer game, and a guy is carrying around a guitar on his back with no strings, and he pulls it off his back and gives it to a girl, and it's fully stringed, and you think, dude, that's like not ideal. So I have spent a lot of time researching, and it's probably, there's probably loads of people who've been in the police force who might read it and go, oh well, that's whatever, that might not have happened. So yeah, and I think you're always going to get things like that. But like I say, hopefully it reads well and it reads believably, which is kind of the feedback I've got so far, so that's kind of good.
I think it reads really well. I don't understand what your issues with your first chapter are, but I suppose that's the author's prerogative.
Yeah, I mean, I think that some people, it's hard, isn't it? Because we're all sensitive, aren't we? No matter how we appear, and everything. Yeah, when you write obviously your first book and it goes out, and yeah, a lot of people said it starts off slowly, but then other people have said, I can't believe these people said it starts slowly, because I don't think it does. And then you just realise that everything's subjective, so not to worry too much about anything, And it's like you could read Sunny Sands and I don't know, like think it's dreadful, or you could have gone through something similar to what I went through, and really it resonates and you think it's great. So yeah, I don't know. I think that maybe it's not fast enough at the start, and it takes 2 or 3 chapters to get into it. But I don't know. If you like it, then I'll go with that. That sounds good to me.
I like it. we do hear that a lot with authors, that nothing's ever quite good enough. There's always something keeping you up at night afterwards when other people have loved it. So I wouldn't worry too much.
Yeah.
Are you somebody who plans a lot to keep on top of all of the threads that are woven through with Sunny Sands? Do you have to plan that and keep really detailed notes on what's happening?
Yes. I mean, it again, we come back to that organised chaos, and like there are, I'm sure I'm not the only one here, but like there are about 30 different notebooks in my writing den, cave of wonder, whatever day it is, whatever I call it. But yeah, out there they're like half filled notebooks with lots of different ideas about characters and the plot lines and the storylines. And my wife gets very frustrated that I can't just buy a notebook and then finish that notebook. I have to buy a new one every time I go out. It's just one of those things. but yeah, I think that in the second one, I mean, Sunny Sands was it came out in December 2018, and now, like, I think it was written really around 2015, 16, and then it took a long time to edit and get it how I wanted it. So it's quite old in my mind, really. Whereas with Crimson Cross, like, I really had to be a bit more stringent, and I couldn't be so freewheeling with it, because there are a lot of things to tie up. And like you say, if I hadn't have tied one thing up, I mean, there's some things that are deliberately, obviously, not concluded because they're going to feed into another book. But if there were obviously glaring things that should have been concluded, you do have that sort of light bulb 2:30 in the morning. Oh my god, like back to the laptop. So yeah, I think it's something I'm not brilliant at planning meticulously. I'm a bit sort of sort of do things on the hop, but as long as the end product is good, or I think it's good, that's all you can do, isn't it, really, at the end of the day? So that's kind of where I got to with it. Yeah.
When it comes to writing the relationships that Charlie has with colleagues, with his daughter, with his ex-wife, how hard is that? To make those relationships work or not work, but so well written.
Yeah, I think it's something you learn over as you write more and more, and I think that I'm nowhere near the finished article when it comes to how good a writer I hope to be in the future. And yeah, like, one of the things that I've wanted to develop from Sunny Sands into the second book and then the third is how relationships and so on are depicted, and the depth into which they go. So again, we come back to kind of, especially with Sunny Sands, it was based very much on people that I knew, people I had around me, experiences I was going through, not necessarily in the police force, but like, obviously, because I'm not a policeman, but in certain work and stuff. I don't want to say too much, but yeah. So I think you can base a lot of the characters and the relationships on things that you have experienced or you have witnessed. And I think there's an element of any sort of creator, there's that horrible saying, I remember Russell Brand saying it once, that everything becomes content, and it's not necessarily a hugely healthy way to live your life, but I mean, unfortunately, everything can be content, and as long as you've kind of got that notebook or somewhere to note something down, anything that kind of piques your interest, you can draw upon. So yeah, I'm a little bit magpie-y in the way I'll sort of pick things up and little ideas and run with them. And later on today, I'm daring to venture out into the big wide world and see what's going on in the public houses of East Kent. And it's going to be interesting, isn't it? It's going to be it's experience, isn't it? And I think that's hopefully people, and having that understanding of people is where you can make relationships in books and make characters believable, hopefully. So yeah, so it's something I worked on and something I hope I will get better at.
So are you writing Charlie Stone book 3 at the moment?
No, because it's the plan is in my head, and my plan is to make sure it's completed and out for Christmas. So I was quite surprised at how quickly I was able to, with the lockdown, I had the idea for Crimson Cross and I had it written down, and I was able to complete the writing of it in a fairly short space of time. So that's kind of my time frame. However, I will have to start it fairly soon. But what happened was that I was with a publisher, local publisher, and I made the decision to take my books off of away from that publisher and do everything independently. And it's still not necessarily it's still obviously not entirely sure whether that was the best thing, but we'll find out. I'm pretty certain it will be. But yeah, so there was a lot of time consuming elements to that. And one of the reasons with that, the reason why I did that was the first edition of Sunny Sands was not really edited to the quality that I wanted. And so a lot of time went into that and redoing that. Another aspect of it is that Sunny Sands did not. So Folkestone is the key point or place in Sunny Sands, and I wasn't allowed at the time to use the actual place names of roads and buildings and so on, and that was a decision by the publisher rather than myself. And a lot of the feedback I had was, oh my god, like, you need to have the real names. And I was like, all right, fair enough, so I was never going to be able to do that with that publisher. So cut a long story short, I did it myself, and the second edition is like independent, and all the place names are back in it. So on top of that, what I wanted to do as well was create another sort of very small novella that kind of talks about one of the main characters, Amy Green, the one. Well, she's the girl who gets murdered at the beginning, and it's kind of her last days, her final days. So I've included that in the reissue. So yeah, basically, getting back to the question, I've done quite a lot, and I'm having a little break now. so yeah, I will do. It will be, my plan is, if I get away on holiday, which my wife assures me we will do, then in August I'm going to start writing it and planning it then. So yeah, it will be happening.
So you mentioned that in Crimson Cross, there's lots of a variety of locations. Have you visited them all, or how have you done research on them if you haven't visited?
Every place that appears in Crimson Cross has been visited, yes, including Ashford. So yeah, it's all there, and Hawkins. Yeah, no, I mean it's more. Sunny Sands was very Folkestone centric, and I mean part of that sort of the personal aspect of Sunny Sands was that, in my personal life, I was getting divorced. I was leaving my daughter, my 5-year-old daughter, which was obviously not nice at all. And I needed that kind of outlet for it. And really, Folkestone kind of swept me up in its arms, and it was very became my new home, and I loved everything sort of about it, possibly due to the situation I was in at the time. So the location was key to that text and that novel. Moving on into Crimson Cross, like I said, I wanted to make character and relationships my focus, because I wanted to make sure that I want to write those better, basically. And so location became kind of secondary in a way. However, we decided to take, I don't want to say too much, but obviously I can say the order, the order which is fueling all the bad stuff that's happening. We wanted to take it cross-continental, and we wanted to... because it was, and that is researched and based upon an order that existed within Christianity, but obviously not part of Christianity, like a kind of fundamentalist twisting of religion. And so that sort of that Rosicrucian order was around in the 14th century, and so I researched heavily into that. And obviously the places, that's all genuine, that's all real, those places exist. And I think that is really important to people, because, like I say, it really upset me when people said, "Oh, I really like Sunny Sands, but I can't believe that you didn't use the right road name." And I think for people who've come from that place or visited that place, I think it's key. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one of the things that you cover lots of different, quite gritty subjects in your writing. How hard is that to write? You're going to be sat thinking about these awful things that do happen, and then you have to write that down. How do you go about that? Is it tricky?
It is tricky. It's become trickier. I think as I've had children, I think it becomes harder to sort of, deal with kind of the horrific side of it. But I guess it's hard. I guess you want. I mean, I remember some of the things when my formative years that I watched and that I read, where you were gripped, and a lot of it boils down to, especially in this genre and crime, you want the antagonist caught, you want justice to occur, and for that to happen, you need to be motivated as a reader to be upset and angered, and that's kind of where the sort of dark stuff comes from. And again, you want it to kind of, I want it to be original. I don't want somebody to turn around and say, "Oh, that thing that you've written about happened in this other book that I've read," because I haven't taken my ideas from other people. They are original ideas, and I think that's kind of why I've delved into the sort of weird stuff that I have. But also to hopefully trigger the reader into wanting to read on. And I think that, again, that's kind of some of the good feedback I've had, is that most people say, I've read it and it took me a day, or I couldn't put it down. And that's kind of hopefully down to the fact that you want the bad stuff accounted for, and that's why you're, excuse me, in some respects, carrying on reading. So in answer to your question, no, because it's fiction and I don't spend too much time with it. I do spend a lot of my life thinking, I can't believe how cruel, and when you're researching these things, how cruel people are to each other, and how cruel we are to animals and stuff like that. But then if you spend too long thinking about that, you get very depressed. So I try to move on as quickly as possible and get on to the next thing.
We've got a couple of questions from Caroline Maston. Hi, Kaz, one of our admins. Would you make a graphic novel version of one of your novels? That's her favourite question. She loves graphic novels.
Would I make a graphic novel version? Wow. Never thought about that. Good question. Well, why not? I mean, yeah, I guess so. Like, she might have to advise me on how I'd go about doing it. But yeah, I mean, I'm keen if people are keen. But yeah, I've never, I suppose, yeah. My experience of graphic novels is fairly limited, but I suppose in teaching I've used it, but then I wouldn't be. Yeah, these would not be appropriate, but yeah, why not? Why not? I mean, my main goal for Sunny Sands is ambitious, to say the least, but I would love to see it on the screen, because I think it would look good. I could see it as kind of like an 8-part Netflixy type series, and so that's really my kind of, it's finishing this kind of trilogy, this Charlie Stone thing, and then yeah, that would be great. But yeah, why not a graphic novel as well?
She also wants to know, would you write in other genres?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting she asks or talks about that, because my next plan is to, in between Christmas and now, is to release a children's book. So I've written it and it's kind of done. I'll have to check it, but yeah, I mean, obviously, dealing with young people in my daily sort of job, you kind of read the texts and that we teach them, and a lot of them are brilliant. A lot of them you can't improve on. Obviously, but there are aspects and elements that you think nowadays. I think modern life has changed significantly. So I think that to try and get those aspects into a book and get that into sort of schools and so on, that's something that interests me greatly. So yeah, I will be writing in other genres. It does interest me writing for the kind of teenage market as well, the young adult market. But yeah, the next thing that will be released almost certainly is a book that's aimed at 10, 11-year-olds. My daughter's read it. She loves it. Not that she's biased, of course, and it's probably going to be called Nerd Boy. So yeah, that's breaking news. But yeah, that's so yeah. In answer to the question, definitely yes.
Well, if you let us know when that's released, I'll share that with the members for you. We've got lots of a broad range of interests as well as crime in the group. So yeah, happy to share that. Cool. Who reads your books first once they're finished? Other than you, obviously.
Well, after I finished it, I need to put it down for a bit and just go and do something else. But yeah, my trusted advisors are, there's my mum firstly, and my wife who reads it, and then I have a select few other people read it as well. But my mum, primarily because she, as much as she's my mum, she is honest and very critical in her approach, and that's a positive thing for me. Brutal in some aspects. She's a South African lady, and I think there are aspects of kind of giving it to you straight, and that's useful because she knows how to do it properly, and how I respond to it. I can respond better to her than maybe other people when I get that level of criticism. But yeah, I think she also doesn't read crime, so she's not going to be the type of person who gets, who's into it because she's into it. She will go, I don't find that bit very engaging, or she'll go, like what she has said recently. She's my barometer, because if she says to me, I read it and I was thoroughly engaged for the whole thing, and I don't read crime, Trev, I think, oh well, that's good, so primarily those two people, and like I say, there are other people who I'll give it to, or I'll run through definite sections with, more so for continuity than anything. So yeah, they're the main two, really.
I was going to ask you about what kind of things you're interested in reading, and Caroline's just asked, have you got any good reading recommendations, which feeds nicely into the question.
It certainly does. I'm reading a fantastic book at the moment called, oh, this is embarrassing. I've just put it down.
I always put people on the spot, sorry.
Everyone will know what it. Everyone, I'll see the cover now. It's the same. It's the same kind of different as me. The same kind of different as me. It's called, okay. And I think it's about to be made into a motion picture, but it's not crime, but it's drama. It's about a rich white guy in America who meets a very poor black guy, and it's just fantastic, especially with all the stuff that's going on, like civil rights movement and socially in America. It's really, really powerful and believable. The whole thing about human experience, being real. It's very real, very visceral. Talks very much about the experiences that people have had. They're just unpleasant but really powerful writing. I've just finished as well Lockdown by Peter May, which was interesting.
Okay, yeah,
great crime
another
writer.
One of our recent chats.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely. And to follow in his footsteps is I'm very, very privileged to do that. Really, he's a fantastic writer. Lockdown was something I think he wasn't going to release, and then obviously, given what's happened, he has. And it was great. Really, really page turny, really interesting, good, good characters, and obviously he predicted this dystopian sort of version of London and England and way before it happened. So interesting stuff. Apart from that, I read. If I was going to sort of talk about my favourite writers historically, obviously James Elmore, Elmore Leonard, people like that. I'm really into, and I and a lot of the old American writers I enjoy, like Norman Mailer and Charles Bukowski and Hemingway, sort of, but I associate him a little bit with school, so that's not ideal. But yeah, I read a lot of non-fiction as well. So I'm reading a book by Eckhart Tolle at the moment. So mix it up, really, but some good ones. Yeah, I've come across a couple of real gems recently. So that's nice.
What kind of things are your most memorable moments since you've started writing?
To do with writing?
Well, for you as an author.
Oh, yeah, okay. Well, I suppose when I released my first book, I was like absolutely terrified that everyone was going to think it's dreadful, and it would just be a flash in the pan and it would go away. And so I suppose the most memorable thing, there's been a couple of memorable things actually. I have done a few book signings, which in Waterstones and so on, which have been pretty good fun and pretty successful. And I have had people come in and be like, "Oh, I need 3 of these books because I'm flying back to Germany later on, and I need to give it to all my friends." And you think, "Oh, that's nice." That's kind of a nice experience. I think for me, there was what was it? It was 140 books released in my previous publisher, and mine was the highest selling fiction one before I took it away from there. So that was nice. And I think for me, just getting, I think it's very simple for me. It's kind of having the consolidation that what you're doing people appreciate, because it's such a saturated marketplace that you sometimes think, if I didn't write this, would anyone really care? And I think part of the writing process has to be for yourself, which is why it doesn't matter if no one ever reads it. Really, you should be, I think, writing for your own catharsis, or for your own, or to better yourself in some ways. But yeah, I think to have it's like, for me, it's like the metaphorical arm around the shoulder, just kind of saying, this is enjoyable and I enjoyed it, or that bit really, touched me. And a lot of people have kind of gone or suggested that they realised that it was fairly autobiographical, which to me kind of says that it must be real or realistic. You're not reading it thinking, "Oh my God, this is completely unbelievable." People must be reading it and thinking, "Oh, this feels real," which I suppose, yeah. So I think, cut a long story short, it's getting the positive feedback that's genuine, because I realised that having my mum and my wife as my main readers isn't like the most necessarily sensible thing to do. So when I get feedback that is genuine from people about the writing and stuff, it's the main thing that kind of keeps me going. So it's not necessarily a specific event, although there have been some very enjoyable events and so on, but it's more just an ongoing process. And obviously I'm in that kind of awkward phase now where Crimson Cross is released, and then I've got to kind of wait a bit of time before I start getting feedback. So part of me is thinking, "Oh my God, everyone's going to hate it and think it's crap," and then but I'm hoping obviously that I'm going to get some nice comments as well, and hopefully know that I'm improving as a writer, because that's really my main goal.
Was it hard for you to have your mum and your wife read things that are quite personal, and is it hard to put that
Yeah.
out there? And were they okay reading it? Obviously, seeing a different side to you by the words that you've written. Was that difficult for all of you, or was it fine?
Well, I mean, as far as I'm aware, it's fine. But yeah, yeah. Oh gosh, yeah. But yeah, no, I think it is fine, and I think that there are elements. Well, I mean, I can always just say it's fiction, can't I? If there's ever a book. I think obviously in my earlier days, like when I was in my early 20s and so on, I used to write things, and I wrote it's still about in places, but it's actually under a different pseudonym, and it's called Footprints, which is a book I wrote, and it's dreadful, and it's really, really graphic, and it's basically about all the things I did at university. And so I kind of went through that bit of the embarrassing aspect of it in those days. And I think with Sunny Sands and with the Charlie Stone series, as much as there is brutality and horror in the fictionalized aspects, like the deaths and so on, with regards to everything else, I've kind of deliberately kept it fairly, I don't want to use the word vanilla, but I mean, it's not graphic in like sex scenes, and there's no language, because I think there might be one swear word, but it's not major in the second one. And because I don't want I don't want to upset my mum. No, that's not. But I mean, it's an element of. I think that you need to be able to articulate yourself without necessarily, using those words. But yeah, I think obviously it weighs on my mind that I want it to be. I don't want it to be just for a certain type of reader or a certain demographic. I want it to be kind of universal, and yeah. So I'd say, in answer to the question, no, it hasn't been that difficult, and yeah, I think they know me well enough to kind of know all the bits that are fiction, and I know what I've been through and stuff. So it's cool. At least I hope it is.
Oh, good. So I've not just
Yeah.
put my foot in my mouth.
No,
It's one of my specialities.
never.
So I'm really disappointed to hear that Charlie Stone's only going to be a trilogy. What are you going to do next? Are you going to carry on with crime?
I think, well, I mean, when I say it's going to be a trilogy, I think what I mean is, and sorry, I should have clarified really, this storyline is going to potentially, well, it will end at the end of the third story. So yeah, so the storyline that is in this, yeah, it's kind of every book is growing. It's growing. There's more aspects to it, more people, more this, more that, etc. So yeah, I think that's going to happen. Then I want to finish the third book, and I really want to close this storyline out on a note that that I'm incredibly proud of. And then I think park it for a bit and see how I feel. And it could be that I write, a Charlie Stone a year, and then maybe do other things alongside it, or it could be that Charlie Stone comes to his natural conclusion, and that is the last one. But yeah, I think that, by nature, I want to write and I want to continue, and I think unless there is, a huge, like backlash, I can't imagine possibly there would be, but I will see. We'll just see how it goes. But I think certainly this kind of storyline will definitely end in the third book, and then yeah, it will probably potentially be more Charlie Stones along the way, but might be someone else. Who knows? Might be his daughter. Who knows? We'll see.
That's true, but I'm glad to hear that it's not definitely the end for Charlie.
Well,
that's good news.
Fingers crossed. We'll see. He might die.
No, I'm going to hold you to it.
Okay.
We've got a question, and it just says Facebook user, so I'm not sure who it's from. Which authors inspire you? Obviously, it doesn't just have to be crime.
No, I touched on this a little bit already. I especially as a younger man, I very much enjoyed Charles Bukowski. Not necessarily the content, because it's a little bit misogynistic and a little bit a lifestyle that I don't really subscribe to now, but I enjoyed the fact that and Hemingway, to some extent, you kind of take all the floral descriptive aspects out of it, and that makes writing quite raw and powerful. So when I was, like I say, it has influenced my writing to a certain degree, I must say, to those types of things. I really, really enjoy John Niven, the books of John Niven. I think they're hilariously funny. I think Kill Your Friends and Kill 'Em All are just fantastic. Don't watch the film. Go and read the book if people haven't. It's very loosely based. If people don't know, it's very loosely based on the music industry, Simon Cowell, and the life. But it's I found that very, very funny. What else do I mean, I'm kind of boring. I'm an English teacher. Like I'm not the cutting edge of what's out there. I really don't know. So like for me, I like Shakespeare. I think you can't really get a much better story than Romeo and Juliet, and so I like a lot of the traditional stuff. I like Fante. I like some of I like Sartre, a lot of the existentialist stuff, especially as I'm getting old now. So it's a real mixed kind of bag, but hopefully some ideas in there. Yeah.
Your novella that you mentioned about is actually now part of one of the books. What made you decide to combine them?
I think that it's very short for a start. So from a practical perspective, because I've done this indie thing with Amazon, they have an amount that you've got to charge for a book. It's got to be something like £1.80 per So I felt like it was kind of ridiculous and I can't make it lower. So I kind of found that whole I can't I can't charge in my own head that amount of money for a 40-page novella. So I kind of felt it was better as an extra to Sunny Sands. So if people had read Sunny Sands and liked it, then they can read another version with the place names in it and it properly edited, and with blood portrayal extra on it. If people read Sunny Sands and enjoy it, then hopefully they'll carry on to read Blood Betrayal, which is at the end of the book, and they'll enjoy it. And really, Blood Betrayal, I wrote it straight after Crimson Cross, and it was a really nice experience because it's not written from Charlie Stone's first person narrative. It's written from two characters' perspectives, and I got to write as a teenage girl, which I never thought would happen. So that was cool, and I enjoyed that. It was different, So that's kind of the reason, really, just because it's hopefully something. It doesn't stand on its own, but hopefully people will read it and go, "Oh, that was cool," So that's kind of the reason.
The question that we had before was from Lucy Sampson, one of our admins. So thank you, Lucy.
Yeah.
She also wants to know, does your work as a teacher give you ideas for your writing? And nothing wrong with liking Shakespeare. He was excellent, she says.
He still is in my world. Yeah. So agreed. Yeah, it does. Does your work as a teacher give you ideas for your work? Not. I mean, if I'm being honest, not massively. Possibly because we've been in lockdown. I mean, like I say, there have been institutions that I've worked in that have contributed to Sunny Sands, you know, and there are schools in Sunny Sands, and there are, yeah, I mean, there is a kind of, in the mainstream, I've got to be careful what I say, but in the mainstream, there is certainly over the last decade a more draconian, business-like, factory-ish, kind of Blake-esque approach to education that has kind of pervaded, and that certainly has coloured some of Sunny Sands. Let's put it that way. With regards to little people, the kids, I wouldn't write about them or their personality traits directly in my work, because I don't think that would be fair. And, you know, I would hate for like some kid to read my book when they're old enough and think that they're being portrayed and get upset. Do you know what I mean? It's just too many
too personal.
But I think the institution, certainly in the aspects of and how they run, yes, would inspire me. But I'd leave it there. And also some of the teachers, definitely.
We've got a question from Alex Hawley, he's another one of our admins.
Yeah.
He said, last night in the Locked Up Festival, Don Winslow mentioned how Shakespeare could be turned into a mystery novel. What's your opinion on that? That's quite a lot to work from.
Yeah, I mean, wow. I mean, not Shakespeare as a whole, but I think obviously, dependent on which text. Like, I mean, you could turn I guess Hamlet into a whodunit, you know. You could, I mean, Macbeth has got the sort of aspects that could be turned into a mystery, I suppose. 100%, you know, Shakespeare is like he is the god, you know. For me, he is like the originator of all the ideas of story, you know. And like, so it's, you know, great stories like that are universal, and they teach us things about love, you know, about ourselves, you know, the whole internal frustration of Hamlet, for instance, you know, completely resonates. And is this the human condition? So it's timeless. It could potentially be put into any genre, and it could potentially 100% be a mystery novel. I think it's a good idea, and actually I'm very keen on any way to make Shakespeare more accessible to the masses, because I think a lot of people switch off as soon as they hear the name. So, because they associate with school and that. So, I think it's a great idea, Alexander. I'm in.
Can you show us your books, please? I want to talk to you about your book covers.
Yeah.
So let's give people an idea of what Sunny Sands and Crimson Cross look like.
No problem. This is edition 2. This is Sunny Sands. Simple, hopefully effective. I mean, the little bit, like the sandy bit, is a bit red, so it's kind of sort of suggests blood. But yeah, the first edition had a really smashing cover, which we tried to change slightly for the second edition. But cut a long story short, it didn't work as well. So we completely thought, you know what, let's just completely change it. And so this is Sunny Sands, and we've gone for the same kind of theme, if you like, for Crimson Cross in the fonts and all that sort of stuff. But I mean, the whole thing with this one, obviously, teenage girl washes up on the beach. So there we are. Should be fairly straightforward. And this one, you know, there is a kind of occult pervading of sort of religion in Crimson Cross. So I didn't want to make it like blatantly obvious what the text's about. I hope that, you know, that they're simple and effective. That's hopefully what we've got. I don't know. Yeah.
So do you have all the say in the cover?
Yeah, now I do. Yeah.
Of course you do now. Yeah, away from your publisher.
Well, it's very liberating yet also terrifying. So yeah, I do have the say in it, and it is kind of my baby. So what I felt with, and again, I don't want to disparage anybody or whatever, but like what I felt was with when I had the publisher, things that should have gone right, that should be basic stuff, just what they weren't getting right. And I'm certainly not the only person to experience that amongst a lot of publishers from what I've heard. So I was thinking, if I can quite easily make these mistakes on my own. So I might as well just go out on my own and do it and try it. And then if everyone says it's crap and no one likes it, then cool, that's fine, and then I just won't write any more books. But by the same token, if some people think it's okay and they quite enjoy it and they want to read the next one, then it's on me as well. So that's kind of my thinking, so yeah, so it's all kind of my work, if you like, and yeah, that's it really. Yeah.
So did you design the covers?
Yes, I have a very funky. I tried to do all the pictures myself, but that becomes very, very difficult depending on quality of camera, and that got very arduous. So these are all like, I'm allowed to use these pictures, so before anyone says anything. But yeah, these are pictures that have been taken. I used a very funky little app on my phone called PixArt, which designs stuff like this, logos and stuff, and it was really good, and I really enjoyed it. So yeah.
We're almost out of time. That hour's gone really fast. Have you got a name for the third Charlie Stone book yet? Can you share that, or are you not there yet?
Not there yet, but I can tell you that Crimson Cross, as Sunny Sands does, ends on a little bit of a knife edge, and the third one will incorporate elements of lockdown, will incorporate a little bit of what's happening, and sort of we'll try and we're going to try and move into the sort of more social what's happening at this moment in time, and try and kind of recreate that kind of pressure cooker situation of lockdown, and so on. But I'm also acutely aware that there's probably going to be a plethora of lockdown books coming out now, so I don't want to kind of limit myself just to that. But yeah, but it's certainly going to have that some kind of elements of that in it, but no name as of yet. Sorry.
Give us one final look at your covers, and then we'll let you go to the pub.
Oh, right. Wonderful. I like the sound of that. There you go.
So Sunny Sands is book 1 and Crimson Cross is book 2, both available on Amazon at the moment. Are they available anywhere else?
Not at the moment, no. Just through Amazon, yeah.
So thank you so much for joining us for an hour this Saturday, rainy Saturday lunchtime where I am. Don't know about where you are. Let's hope you don't get too wet going out.
Yeah. Skin's, my mate says, your skin's waterproof, Trev, you'll be fine. So.
You're not made of sugar.
No, absolutely. There you are. Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. I've had a thoroughly lovely hour.
Thank you very much.
I'll be reading Crimson Cross, so I'll let you know how I get on.
Yeah, let me know. Any feedback appreciated. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you to all the admins and members for your questions as well. Thanks, Trevor.
Cheers. Thank you. Bye.